Hi, everybody.
Hello,
I don't
everyone.
I don't think anybody's here yet, so
No.
we're talking to ourselves. There's a couple of big things going on, kind of last minute, that are live,
Yeah.
and
Okay.
so I have a feeling a bunch of people may be over
Okay.
there,
Okay.
and but that's cool. We can
Yeah.
still talk about what we're going to cover and
Yeah.
and everything. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure some people will show up that
Mm-hmm.
aren't into the other, or they've
Mm-hmm.
seen whatever guest is going to be on, and so now they're going to channel hop. So
Mm-hmm.
that happens. Um, but today's topics is tell your own story
Yes.
and the importance of why you should be able to tell your own story from your perspective.
Mm-hmm.
This is my co-host Isaac, and he's going to take over now.
Okay. Okay. Well, let's talk about why we want to tell our own story. Basically, I believe that in life, we have to tell people who we are. Because if you think about it, as children, especially young people, when they're growing up and they're going off to school, going off to college, which both of us, we see that a lot. We say they're trying to figure out who they are, but basically nobody ever gives them any constructive information. It's almost like the parents drive them to school or follow them to school. They wave goodbye and say, be an adult. But think about it. Up until that point, they've been telling them everything that they needed to do. And then all of a sudden, you got to turn around and start
And
making
be an
decisions.
adult. Yeah.
That can be anxiety provoking. Am I doing the right thing? Is this what my parents would want me to do? And so basically, it's about setting standards in your own life, things that are
Sorry, my
growth.
phone is. Here we go.
Okay, not a problem. Things that are growth producing. And then when you get with other people who are trying, maybe peer pressure, and we all get that. People are trying to persuade you to do something, or say for instance, you're with a group of friends and they say, "Oh, Isaac, oh Sherry, you never say anything. You're so shy." What if you're not shy, but you let that person say that? Or you should I think when people tell us who we are, we should think about it so that we can develop a persona of who we are. No, I'm not shy. I just don't talk a lot. I like to take in information. I'm better in small crowds, whatever it is for you. You need
Yeah,
to be able to tell other people who you are. Because if you
exactly.
don't, they will make up the story about you and you won't like it. Now, let me say this, it's not about making them agree with you. It's you putting out your information. But if you put out
Right.
that information, most likely that same information is going to come back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Think about it. Most likely,
Mikey Lynn, somebody showed up.
I mean, because most likely somebody is going to say, if somebody says, "Oh, Sherry, we went to lunch with her. She's so quiet." Somebody's gonna say, "Oh, no, 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 she's not really quiet. I don't know what was going on, but she just sort of listens for a while, and then she's a very good friend, very conversational." But see, that's the sort of information you want to counter when people are telling other people who you are, because you will not like it.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it can give you a fresh perspective
Yes.
of how other people see you.
Mhm.
And so if it's not in a way you want to be seen or
Mhm.
thought of, then that gives you the opportunity
Mhm.
to make those changes within yourself
Mhm.
to change how you're seen, or to
Mhm.
improve your personality.
Right.
Um, I think that's where, and this is strictly from a layman's point of view, in relationships, we hook up with somebody that we think is perfect.
Mhm.
And then once in that relationship, we go about making that other person change
Uh-huh.
And then once we get them to change, you don't want them anymore because that's not the person that you hooked up with. It's like, well,
Uh-huh.
yeah, you changed them to be who you wanted them to be, but that's not who they are. So
Mhm.
um it
Or
can
the person
be,
or the person worked on changing you.
yeah,
And
exactly.
and instead of saying, "No, I don't like that. I don't like to go to those places," we tend to go along with the person. And they say,
Yeah.
"Well, oh, well, I thought you liked that." And then they'll say, "Well, you didn't say anything."
Right. Yeah. Well, you never complained.
Right. Right.
You never said you disliked it. So,
Exactly. Exactly.
um, yeah, I mean, uh, and hi, Stephanie. Um,
Hi, Stephanie.
that's just like, it would- I'm trying to think of how to word it.
Mhm.
Um, I know with college students. Okay. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, Michelle.
When I see, especially our freshman college students
Mhm.
who come in and all of their life they've had helicopter parents
Mhm.
who hover over them, dictating everything they do, interfering with the school and the teachers as to what little Johnny needs or doesn't need.
Uh-huh.
And they get to college and they're ready to kind of sprout their wings and figure out
Mhm.
who they are, and
Mhm.
what do I like? What do I want to do? What do I want to study?
Uh-huh.
And you see these same parents that will descend upon you. Oh my God, this is crazy. I'm sorry. Um, you see the same parents show up and start wanting to dictate everything this kid is doing. And you see
Mhm.
the stress in
Mhm.
the kid and the young adult
Mhm.
because they're trying to figure out their steps. But mama and daddy are right there telling everybody what they think, how they think, what they eat, why they eat,
Mhm.
all this stuff. And, maybe that's not the way that that person thinks or feels anymore.
Right. Uh-huh. Mhm.
The hardest fight I know as staff that we go through is when we have a helicopter parent show up and they want us to pull up and give them their grades and their
Uh-huh.
attendance and all this. And we're like, I'm sorry, I can't do that.
Right.
Little Johnny's an adult now,
Right.
and he has to give you permission. He has to give us permission to give you his records.
Right.
Well, I'm paying for it. It's like I realize that, but I'm sorry, I'm not allowed by law to give you that information. You
Right.
have to have your child come in here with you and
Uh-huh.
say, yes, you can give my mother that information.
Uh-huh.
And then no problem. But and that sometimes I think is harder for the parents than it is for the student because suddenly they don't have control over how their child
Right.
is doing and what they're
Right.
doing. Um,
Right. And that's sort of an awkward situation when the parent is paying for the education, but you cannot give them information about the adult because of the privacy.
right. Oh yeah,
But
it's
but
like in the medical field, you can't divulge somebody's medical information without written permission. Those are HIPAA
right,
laws. You could go to federal
right.
jail for that.
Mhm.
Um, but
But, with a parent who does that, it actually suggests that they did not prepare the child to deal with issues. They dealt with everything, and then they set the child free and expects them to do all sorts of wonderful things and not have any problems. It just doesn't work like that. It doesn't
yeah,
work like that.
yeah.
But
I go back to I think it was like the first year that I was working at the university,
mhm,
and a young girl came in to talk to the professor whose office I was in
mhm,
working in at the time, and she was visibly upset, and he was not there that day. So I didn't know where my boundaries stood. I was so new at that kind of job. And so
Mhm.
I got her to open up and talk to me.
Mhm.
And it was that she hated computer science. She
Mhm.
didn't want to study this. She wanted to study fashion design.
Uh-huh.
That's where her passion was.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, change your major. And she's like, oh, I can't do that. And I said, why not? She said, because my father said that this is what I'll study, and he's paying for school.
Right.
And I'm sitting there. Now, the American Sherry is thinking, you're a grown woman, you can study what you want. But I'm dealing with a young lady from India
Yeah.
in a culture where what daddy says
Yeah.
is law and there's no arguing about it. And I caught myself before I stuck my foot in my mouth.
Mhm.
And I had to backtrack in my brain a little bit. I said, well, I said, have you told your dad that you don't want to do this? Oh no, I would never do that.
Mhm.
I said, well, how do you know he won't let you change your major if you don't tell him that what you're passionate about is
Mhm.
something totally different?
Mhm.
And she kind of got this look of like an epiphany on her face, like, I could do that. I said, I said, maybe he says no. And you have to finish out and get your degree in computer science. I said, and then you're done. You've got your degree. What's to stop you from going back to school and then studying what you want to study? And
Mhm.
because you'll be in a position you pay for it yourself.
Mhm.
And she was like, I never thought of it that way.
But see, Sherry, that's absolutely the point. Y-
Yeah.
you may be making me study computer science, but I need you to know what I would like to study.
Right. Well,
You
that's what she did when she went home for the holidays.
Mhm.
She went and talked to her father. And she worked up the nerve to approach him and tell him, I don't like this. I don't like studying this. This is not what I want to do.
Mhm.
This is what I want to do. And he said, I will make a compromise with you. I will let you minor in that as long as you major in computer science,
Mm.
because that I know will give you the job to support yourself.
Mhm.
And so she agreed. And when she came back to school, I was like the first person she came to see.
Mhm.
I talked to my father and he said I could do it for a minor. And I was like,
Oh,
that's fabulous. Now
that's
you've
it.
got the best of both
That's
worlds.
it.
And daddy's still paying for it. So you
Right.
don't have to, you
Right.
know?
Uh-huh.
And but I had to really put the brakes on myself because I had to remind myself, okay,
Mhm.
this is a different culture that I'm dealing with.
Mhm.
And so it's a lot harder for me. It's a lot more dangerous for me to stick my foot in my mouth and say, well,
Mm.
you can do what you want to do. You're an adult.
Uh-huh.
I may very well have ended up with some outraged father from India in my office
Uh-huh.
cussing me out because
Oh, yeah.
I told his daughter she could do what she wanted to do. So, um, but it was an important lesson that I needed to learn firsthand myself. Because once I thought about it, I thought, I'd been warned, be careful how you
Mhm.
deal with foreign students because their culture is very different than
Mhm.
ours. But I was never given an
Mhm.
explanation of how that would
Mhm.
apply.
Mhm.
And so that's what it took. Um,
Mhm. Well, the thing about it that I think it was because you mentioned it, and that led her to the thought that this could be possible. When you've never had the experience of doing that, you don't think it's possible. But I've known a lot of American students that they were forced to do
oh, absolutely.
certain
Yeah, absolutely.
majors in college. But see, we've all come from somewhere like that, or when we don't speak up, we beat ourselves up. We beat
Yeah,
ourselves up. We don't even sometimes we have not even formulated a persona of who we are in our own minds.
right.
You say stuff like, why why do I just let people keep treating me any kind of way? Why do I why do people do me like this? We never we never come up with a solution as to I'm going to start sharing who I am. But I think what we believe is that if I share who I am, people are going to reject what I say. It's not
Yeah,
about them rejecting it. It's about you saying it. It's about, have you ever been in a situation where you were in like involved with other people and there were things that you wanted to say to them, but you decided, no, I'll just leave and I'll go away. What you'll do is you'll you'll sort of run through your mind over and over. I should have told them. I should have told them. You might as well be honest with the person. You don't have to be angry with people when you share the truth. You really don't.
right, right. And yeah, everybody's putting some really very interesting conversation they're having here
Mhm.
in chat. I don't
Yeah.
know if you can see the chat or not, so I'm just
I
putting it up on the
I
thing.
I'm seeing it,
Um,
I'm reading it.
oh, okay. Because some people that don't do this all the time, they get in and they can't see the chat. So
Right, right.
I kind of got in the habit of just clicking everything so it'll pop up on the
After
screen.
about the second time, I
Um,
figured it out.
uh, see, you taught yourself, you learn. But yeah,
Yeah, a work
I
in
mean,
progress.
as I've gotten older through the years and met people who have talked about
Mhm,
the way they were brought up or the way their parents treated them, or
mhm,
some horribly, some good, I
mhm,
realized that I was really lucky in the sense that my mom, I guess, because being a single mom raising two kids on her own,
mhm.
she took the approach to my brother and me. You've got a brain, use it.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, figure it out. If you can't figure out what to do, then come talk to me and we'll figure it out together. But she more or less let us make our own choices as into what direction we wanted to go with our life.
Mhm.
And I know many years later, one day she said to me, she said, the greatest accomplishment I ever had was that both of my kids graduated college with a degree.
Wow.
And that's how she measured herself because she
Right.
never finished high school,
Oh,
you know,
that's cool.
and because she got pregnant with me when she was still in
Mhm,
high school,
mhm,
and had to quit because
mhm.
back in 61, you didn't go to school when you were pregnant.
Right, right,
It was a no-no.
right.
Not like today where most people don't think twice about it.
Yeah.
Um, and then of course you have those parents that, like you said, they want to dictate
Mhm,
every move their child makes. It's always somebody else's fault or the
mhm.
teacher's fault or the
Yeah.
school's fault. It's never the child that's misbehaving, and doing wrong things.
Mhm,
Um, and it can be difficult for faculty and staff to have to, we have to be counselors on top of being faculty and staff. Um, I know when we had an organization start up out of the diversity office,
mhm,
um, for a program they called Project Allies,
mhm,
which is training faculty and or staff, whoever wanted to join up,
mhm,
into how to deal with providing a safe zone for LGBTQ students.
mhm,
And the minute I got the email, I went to my then new boss. He had just started. And I showed him the email and I said, I feel very passionate about this. I
mm,
would like to be the person to do this.
mhm,
And he was like, yeah, that's fantastic. Great.
mhm,
Go. So I was able to go and go through some of their training.
mhm.
I
Oh.
mean, I've never technically have had to deal with a student being harassed or
Mhm,
um, you know, made fun of or harassed or bullied or anything.
mhm,
But they see that little sticker on my door,
mhm,
and every student that walks through our department, they know that, especially if they're gay, that if there's an issue, I can go to Miss Sherry's office and
Mhm.
hang out, and I don't have to tell her anything. I don't have to explain anything. I can
Mhm.
just come in and say, I need to hang out in here for a
Mhm.
while. I'm like, yeah, fine, go ahead, you know.
Mhm.
And so, and then I can engage them on their culture and their family and what they, where they come from. And because like I had told my boss, is that most of our students are foreign. I said, and coming out of the closet is the equivalent of a death sentence or being ostracized, at least
Mhm.
from the family and their society. So
Mhm.
they're already dealing with their own issues from home,
Mhm.
much less what they may deal with here. We need to offer a safe space. And but yeah, I mean, we all have to learn how to learn from our mistakes.
Uh-huh.
uh I know part of what I was reading when I was looking up on this particular theory was the narrative therapy for trauma patients, of the importance of telling your own story when you're traumatized.
Mhm.
Um, you got people dealing with PTSD and ADHD and all kinds of other things, that bipolar, and maybe the beginning of schizophrenia, that
Mhm.
it makes it very difficult for them to function in society as a normal person,
Mhm.
because
Mhm.
of what's locked in their head.
Right.
And so, I can see where something like this can give a lot of power
Mhm.
to someone that's dealing with that, um, because now they're able to talk it out loud.
Mhm. Well,
And
the talking it out part, the narrative part, is
yeah,
that if you don't share your experience, people will make up what it is, and you probably won't like it. I think that's the point behind that. They will make it up. It's like, and it that sort of like invalidates a person when you just
yeah,
think that you know what the experience was and how they should have handled it, but you never know. Somebody could uh have different people could have the same experience and they experienced it in a different way. So people have to
right,
tell how they experienced it.
right, absolutely. I mean, because we're, I mean, it's like with a police lineup, and you have, eyewitnesses,
Mhm.
and you can have five eyewitnesses that were all in the same place, saw the same incident, and they all saw something different
Exactly.
because of how their brain processed what they saw.
Mhm.
And which most people would think, well, if you have an eyewitness, that should make it a lockdown solution. But
Mhm.
what if you have five people that have given you an eyewitness statement and none of the statements match?
Right.
Which one is right?
Uh-huh.
Um, so, and I think, like we were talking about earlier, somebody else telling your story for you
Mhm.
before you're ready to share it,
Uh-huh.
and they steal your thunder.
Mhm.
It can kind of knock you sideways, because suddenly
Mhm.
now people are now going to look at you in the other person's through the other person's eyes of how
Mhm.
they see you, and
Mhm.
not how you want them to see you.
Mhm. Well,
You know,
Sherry, you just said something that was very important about how another person processes something. I I worked in a treatment center once, and I knew this counselor. I wasn't there when this happened though, but he winked at someone, and the guy hit him, just slugged him.
wow,
Because now, when I was growing up, if my aunt winked at me, that was like a sort of a validation because she would wink like that. Some people, everybody doesn't have the same, I guess, memory card
right,
that that it means something else to them. That's why we have, and some people will get angry. You have to explain to yourself, explain to them who you are and where you're coming from.
Yeah.
It's all about communication. That's what I think. And
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah.
I'm looking in the chat, and I see Stephanie and Michelle. And Stephanie said something about she allows her children to make mistakes. And
Yeah.
think about it, y'all, though. Are there really any mistakes? Do we have to look at them as mistakes or setbacks? Or can we look at them as experiences to grow from? Because Abraham Hicks says you can't get it wrong and you can't get it done. There's always an opportunity. We always keep moving. But
Yeah.
if we in the present moment look back at all the things that have happened in our lives, even things that we thought were terrible, if we look at them as an experience that we can learn from and that we don't have to repeat, I think that's growth. I do. I think it's growth.
Yeah. I mean, and I know my son gets so tired of me sharing this.
Uh-huh.
um, when he was in middle school,
Mm-hmm.
um, there was another boy in the apartment complex we lived in. They were the same age, but the other boy was always skirting the line of getting into trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that our son didn't do stupid stuff and get in trouble, but
Mm-hmm.
not on a legal aspect of
Mm-hmm.
it. And the other boy talked him into there was a an empty mobile home in front of the complex on a
Mm-hmm.
lot of land. And the guy that owned it was my husband knew it just wasn't rented out at the moment. And his the other kid in the complex talked him into let's go bash the windows in.
Mm-hmm.
And they went and they busted all the windows in on this trailer.
Wow.
Well, there was a little convenience store in the lot next to him, and
Mm-hmm.
somebody that worked there saw them do that. And they knew the two boys, they knew where they lived. And so they called the owner, who was like, okay, well, I know who these kids are. I'm friends with one of their fathers. And so he called the local police, who sent, the police unit down, and they, came over to the homes. I get a call at work, and my husband's like, okay, this is what happened. And I said, did he do it? And he said, he says yes, that they did that. I said, well, then he has to face the consequences of his actions.
Mm-hmm.
I said, we can't cover it up for him.
Yeah.
He broke the windows. He's got to pay for it. And so, that's what his dad told him. He said, okay. He said, look, you did it. You have to say you did it,
Mm-hmm.
apologize for it, and then figure out how we're going to rectify it.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and I know my son down late years later said it was one of the hardest things he ever had to do
Yeah.
was to look at the police officer, to look at the man that my husband had done a lot of odd jobs for, and admit that yes, we did this, and
Yeah.
yeah, I knew it was wrong, but it just seemed like a fun thing to do on a boring summer afternoon.
Uh-huh.
And the only thing the police did was they took his baseball bat from him,
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't let him keep it anymore. And but the other kid kept denying that he had anything to do with it, even though there were witnesses that saw him.
Mm-hmm.
And his father was wanting to take his side of it. And
Mm-hmm.
my husband was like, no, they did it.
Mm-hmm.
They did it. They need to face the consequences for it. And so the owner of the trailer asked my son, well, how do we fix this? And my son said, we have to replace the windows. He said, that's right, you do. And so my husband said, well, we'll get the glass and we'll do the work and replace the windows.
Mm-hmm.
And so the other father agreed to pay half.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, the other kid never showed up to help replace it.
Mm-hmm.
But that summer, that's how my son spent his summer,
Mm-hmm.
was working to replace the glass in that trailer. Now,
Mm-hmm.
my husband could have gone in and done it in 2 days and have been a
Right.
done deal. But instead, it took 2 weeks
Mm-hmm.
because he made my son do it, you
Right.
know. And, but it was a lesson he never forgot.
Yeah.
There are consequences to your actions,
Yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
when you do something, especially something illegal,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to pay some consequences.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're lucky that the man didn't press charges against them.
Yeah.
Fortunately, he knew my husband and they were friends.
Mm-hmm.
So, he was willing to let it go at you admit it, you apologize for it, and you fix it.
Mm-hmm.
But not everybody would do something like that,
That's true. That's
you
true.
know. And we got let's see, Teresa's here, hugger greeter, and
Oh, hi, Teresa.
so what was it? Chile was saying, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well,
Middle schools. Go ahead.
Lynn, you know what? This is what comes to me. The school, the staff could have fixed it, but it was easier to not fix it and blame it
Yeah,
on your son. It's like,
yeah,
and I don't know why we do that. It's like people will think to themselves, well, if you hadn't said anything, I wouldn't have to do this. I wouldn't have to straighten this out. But if that's
yeah,
your job to straighten it out, you should. And I think that's what we should say to people. Sometimes, even if you're upset, you may have to calm down and say, I know this is difficult and that you'll have to put some things in place to make sure that it doesn't happen again. But I believe you can do it because
yeah,
people, some, I've seen, y'all, I've worked with people who try to figure out how not to do their job. I mean, like, if you've worked in a school for, let's say, at least 3 years, and I'm sure if it was a administrator, principal, they've had to be in a school for 3 years. You've just about seen everything over and over, and you hadn't figured out how to solve a problem. There's something wrong with it.
yeah.
I mean, like, these kids are doing the same thing over and over. They're not doing anything new.
Right.
Think about it. And
Yeah,
it just bothers me when I see people who try not to do their job. And I will confront people. I was like, "Hey, that's your job. You're supposed to figure out how to fix this."
exactly. My son went through the same thing again in middle school. A group of boys that would bully him and knock him down and knock his books out of his hands and whatnot. And of course, his dad and I were always trying to teach him turn the other cheek, look the other
Mhm.
way. And one day he came home in tears again, upset. And I had just had enough. And I looked at him. I said, "The next damn time that kid bothers you, haul off and punch him right between the eyes with all your strength." And he just looked at me and then he looked at his dad. His dad said, "You heard your mom. She said, punch him." 2 days later, we get a phone call from the principal. One punch, he knocked the kid out. I mean,
Wow.
just boom. And he had half of the faculty, half the teachers in the school, and more students than they could count go to the principal's office in his defense saying, this kid was asking for it.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
been bullying him all year long.
Uh-huh.
But the point being is that why did it have to get to that point
Exactly. Because
before
an adult
something
saw
was
it.
done about it? Yeah.
Right. Someone saw it. Someone saw
And
it.
yeah, other teachers saw it. They were well aware of what was going
Right.
on. It's like, then why the hell didn't you stop it
That's it.
before it got to that point?
That's it.
Before violence had to occur
Right.
in order to correct the situation,
Exactly.
you know?
Exactly.
Um, I mean, at the time, we laughed. Well, I guess it always comes down to you gotta, stand your ground and
Mm.
fight it out. But do we
Uh-huh.
really?
Right.
Why is that? Why is that considered the solution,
Mhm.
especially for children?
Right.
Oh, just let them fight it out.
Right.
The winner gets to make the rules. Well, no. What if what if one child is severely handicapped in some way or another
Right.
than the other child? How are they going to defend themselves? They can't
That's
have a
true.
brawl.
That's true.
What if they're in a wheelchair? What
Mhm.
they're going to run over his toes with their wheelchair. I mean, it's yeah, it's it's how do we prevent that from happening before it happens? And again, as you grow up, I think that's where telling your own story comes into play,
Right.
because
Right.
then you can tell the narrative of what happened to me, why I did what I did,
Mm-hmm.
and you
Exactly.
take it from there.
Mm-hmm.
So, um,
Yeah.
I mean, go ahead.
If we look at our lives, all the mistakes, all the difficulties, if we look at it in chronological order, we can start learning how much we've grown. Most of the time we don't look at it in chronological order. We have memories that flash back from, you know 12th grade, college years, 26, 16. They come all like that instead of us putting it in order so that we can see the
Right.
progress that we've made. And I think when we start thinking along those lines, we can start to change our own perspective about life, and we can start to change how things are going on around us, things that we're involved in. And it's like Lynn with the schools. I think some schools are trying to figure out how how can they not involve parents. They'll say the parents are not involved, but they try to figure out how to keep the parents uninvolved as much as possible so that they think that they don't have any problems. But we're always going to have problems. You just have to learn to be a problem solver.
Well, and what how does that affect the child then? Of if everyone's always sweeping the issues under the rug, if every kid in the class gets an award so no one feels left out,
Uh-huh.
whether if they did good or not, then you're you're taking away the incentive
Mhm.
to do better. You
Mhm.
know,
Mhm.
um, I mean, it's the same when you go to another country.
Uh-huh.
You find out about their culture so that how you behave, how you dress, how you talk to people is not an offense
Right.
to their culture.
Uh-huh.
Um, that just happened with a couple that went to another country and just did a lot of offensive things. They didn't dress properly, they didn't behave properly according to that culture, you know. And the leadership of that culture was highly offended about it and actually gave a press conference on it. I saw it earlier and I was like, holy crap. They weren't very happy with that, now were they?
Mhm.
But it's because somebody chose to not learn what the culture was they were going into.
Mhm.
Therefore, they made mistakes that insulted another country.
Or Sherry, in this country, we
That's
have so many freedoms, we can choose to be ignorant.
yeah, unfortunately.
That's just what it comes down to. And
And as the music in Beauty and the Beast says, what we fear, what we don't understand, we fear.
yeah.
What we fear, we hate, and what we hate, we attack.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it's part of one of the songs they sing when the townspeople find out that the beast is real.
Mhm.
And so they're going to go to the castle, storm the castle, and kill the beast because they fear it. They're ignorant of it.
Right.
And because of that, all the other emotions, and there's like this song that they do,
Mhm.
and it very clearly says in the song the steps. And I mean, I watched it when my son was a kid a gazillion times, sang along with the
Uh-huh.
song, never thought twice about it until somebody else pointed out, wow, that's
Yeah.
that's really sad that
Mhm.
their goal was to kill this beast because they were ignorant of who or what it was,
Mhm.
They feared it, therefore they hated it, therefore they had to kill it
Right.
instead of trying to understand it.
Mhm.
And so that's where I think telling your own story, while not to that extreme in actual real life, but it could very much go that way.
But when you tell your own story, you can decide how much you share because people will make up stuff about people who are quiet. They'll make up people stuff about people who they sort of stay to themselves. They You would be amazed at how many insecurities that other people have and they put it on other people. And that's why it's always necessary to tell your own story. That's what I believe.
Yeah, absolutely. I like what Michelle's saying here. Yeah, just learning how to defend yourself,
Mhm.
especially for women, is vital. Um, in protection from being harmed, because if you don't know how to be aware and be prepared, you're liable to walk into any bad situation and put yourself,
Mhm.
in a position where you could get hurt. You know,
Yeah.
um,
Mhm.
and it's what is she saying?
Huh?
I was trying. Something that T. Lynn said, and I was like, wait, what?
Just go.
See, that's somebody that A, doesn't understand part of the psychology of their job, and damn sure isn't doesn't care enough to want to implement finding out how to deal with such a
Well,
situation.
that's the way she believes. She doesn't believe. If she said that, she believed it wholeheartedly.
Oh
But
yeah,
that would make it easy. That would make her job easy. She wouldn't have to like what do they do? Say classroom management. She wouldn't have to do any of that.
yeah. Which reminds me, when my brother was in middle school, he was making straight A's,
Mm-hmm.
but he never brought a book home. He never did
Uh-huh.
homework. And so at the upcoming parent teacher conference nights, when parents can go see the teachers, my mom made sure she had the night off and she went to go talk to his teacher. And the teacher was like, "Oh, yeah, he's a great student. He just sleeps most of the time." And my mom was like, "Excuse me, he's sleeping in class, and you didn't think that was important enough to tell me that
Right.
he's sleeping in class? He's not learning? Well, he already knows it." And it's like, okay, there's a real disconnect here between
Right.
what the teacher's responsibility is,
Right.
which is making sure each child is learning to the best of their
Right.
ability,
Right.
as opposed to just letting them sleep in class so you don't have to deal with that kid.
That's it.
It's
But
like,
even if he did know it, wouldn't you think that the teacher would be clever enough to say, "I know you know this stuff and you can do it, but I need you to be awake. Maybe while you're in class, this is what I would like you to do." You know what I mean? I mean, like,
yeah, there's not like they couldn't have given him other assignments to do.
right. But
Um,
that would be too much for some people. Now
yeah,
some teachers are that good, but some people they just want to do the bare minimum.
yeah. I mean, it's a job. It's just a job. It's not their
Right.
passion,
Right.
and you can tell that by how they approach teaching.
Right.
And not to pick on teachers and stuff. I guess this sounds like a diatribe against
I know it
public
doesn't.
schooling, but
I don't
it's
mean that.
because public schooling is actually pretty wonderful when you think about it, as compared to the rest of the world. Um, Most other cultures, you only go to school if your parents have money and can
Uh-huh.
pay to send you to school.
Yeah.
That was one of the standouts of America when we first got going.
Right.
Despite all of our faults and all of our our
Right.
bad stuff that we did offer public education, that every person deserves the right to have an education
Uh-huh.
to be who they want to be when they grow
Right.
up.
Right.
And it's been under attack now for the last, what, 40, 50 years, as they've
Uh-huh.
slowly drained away the money and the support and everything that goes into public schooling.
Mm-hmm.
um but it's uh I yeah, I'll go off into a diatribe about that, so let's not go there.
Yeah, I
Let's
was
stick
trying
to
to
the topic.
right, I was trying to hold back too.
Because boy, howdy, I can let loose with some things I know.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, we'll save that for another show.
Yeah, another
Um,
show.
but yeah, I think it's important for us. I mean, most people, I hear from other people all the time, oh, but you're so friendly and you're so talkative and you make everybody feel comfortable. And it's like,
Mhm.
if y'all knew how shy I really was,
Uh-huh.
it would surprise you, because I was always the person that when I would go into a room full of people I don't know,
Uh-huh.
I was the wall hugger. You know,
Really?
I would stand in the back of the room hugging the wall until I either saw somebody I knew that I could go talk to, or someone came over and started a conversation with me. Now, once I got to know who the people in the room were and got comfortable with them, oh yeah, then I come in and say, hey, let's have a party. And and I'm right there in the middle of them all. But it takes me a while to get to that point. I have to
Yeah.
know somebody first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Doing this is, in some ways, it's like hugging the wall.
Uh-huh.
You kind of stand back until you kind of see where everybody's at.
Uh-huh.
But at the same time, you're also having to put yourself out there. It's like there's a lot of people you can watch on YouTube. All you ever see are
Uh-huh.
their hands in the cards. You don't see a face, you don't see a
Right.
body, you don't see their hair or lack of.
Yeah.
We were backstage. I was bitching about my hair, and I just said, "Hey, you got hair." So I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah, that's
point
it.
taken." So,
Yeah, leave it alone. You got it.
um, we always want what we don't have, is what he said. Hi, Mousy. Yeah, honey, you're in the swamp. Isaac isn't far from the swamp either. He's down in this area. He's
Yes.
just over a state line from me. So,
Yes. But yeah. But I think part of telling your own story is really just being assertive and speaking up for yourself and not let other people tell you who you are or what you are.
yeah,
And you don't have to argue with them. You can say, "Yeah, I know you think that uh, I isolate, but really, I like spending time to myself." You know.
yeah. I know for a lot of people, when lockdown hit, they were the happiest people in the world because they hated going into an office or a job where they had to be around people all the time.
Right.
They
Right.
were like, "This is heaven sent. I can stay home and
Right.
still work." And
Yeah.
there was a lot of people, a lot of home businesses started
Yeah.
out of lockdown because people suddenly realized,
Hmm.
I can stay at home and work, still work full time,
Right.
still pull in the salary, but yet
Hmm.
I'm here for my kids, I'm here for my spouse,
Right.
I'm here to deal with whatever may happen at home that normally I would have to be called away from work to go
Hmm.
home and deal with it.
Right.
Um, I think that made a big change to a lot of the inner dialogue that people had with themselves. Well, I have to
Hmm.
go to this job and I have to
Right.
do this and I have to do
Uh-huh.
that in order to think that that's what they have to do to make a living,
Hmm.
to provide for their family, to pay their
Right.
bills, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and I think in that respect, lockdown was a really good thing to happen because
Yeah.
people were like, I'm working, 50, 60 hours a week for under $10 an hour to bust my butt and I'm never home. I never see my kids. I never, I never see my spouse except that I'm going as he's coming and, and that kind of thing. And I think it really hit a lot of people that, you know, I could do this, work from home. They realized that it was a feasible thing to do
They
and
woke
allowed them to change their story.
they woke up and started telling
Yes,
their own story. Instead of someone
exactly.
saying you got to be here and you need to be at work on time, and you know and they started, I think, I guarantee you, some of those people who were riding the highways and they never met another car until they got to work, they started to realize, oh, I'm going to work every day, but I can't pay the power and the water, and I'm borrowing money to buy gas to get to work. What good is this? A lot of people came to that
Yeah,
realization, but when they were in it,
yeah.
they were moving so much, they thought, well, this is
Yeah,
what I'm
you're on that
supposed to do.
hamster wheel and you just go and go and go
Yeah.
and going and you don't slow down enough to look around and say, is it worth it what I'm
Because
doing?
somebody else was telling their story. And people were
Right.
saying, people don't want to work. And I was like, people will work. They don't want to work and not be able to pay their bills.
They don't want to be disrespected and not earn what they deserve,
Right. Exactly.
you know. Um, I know they just because our state is Republican led, House, Senate, and governor's office, they just outvoted raising the minimum wage here
Hmm.
up to $10 an hour.
Hmm.
Minimum wage in Louisiana is $7.25 an hour.
Well, they think if
And I
it's
heard somebody talking about it at work about, oh, well, they don't need that more money. And I'm like, you show me where in this town you can rent a place to live, pay your utilities, buy your groceries, raise your kids for
uh-huh.
$7.25 an hour. I said, you realize that's $200 a week
Hmm.
before taxes.
Can I tell you where that's coming from, Sherry?
Yeah.
It's all about control. It came to me today. I was picking wild plums. I had a big old bowl full. We have some trees. And I was like, why are people willing to just follow and vote against, like social security and things are going to help them? You know what it is? They're depressed.
Yeah.
There are a lot of depressed people, and depressed people are command oriented. And if you tell them to do something, they do it. If you tell them to go and fight like hell, they're going to do it. And you
Yeah.
know what they're saying now? I don't know why I did that. Most of
Yeah.
them,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know. And you know one thing? They don't know why.
Thing is, we've got a whole country that's suffering from PTSD right now
I know.
because of the previous administration and the constant chaotic atmosphere that was occurring within our own government, which reflected all the way down to
Mm.
the local dog catcher.
But think about
When
it. If you're paying a person $7 an hour and they can't pay their bills, they're going to stay into a low grade depression.
yeah,
And they're going to think people are against me. And somebody says, fight like hell. They're going to find a way to go and fight like hell. That's
yeah.
just, that's what we're
And
experiencing.
that's what also feeds the race war as far as blaming
Exactly.
other races for your issues because, oh, well, you may be poor, but you're not black or you're not Asian or you're not,
Exactly.
whatever. And
Exactly.
it's like, okay, but what does that got to do with the fact that I can't feed my kids? You
Right.
know?
Right.
Um,
Because everybody's thinking, everybody's putting it on the other. The other. It's not,
yeah,
but they're not blame. Their anger is misdirected. Let me say
yeah, yeah. It's squirrel, look over here. While
that.
we're stealing all the money out of your
Yeah.
bank, look over here. These people are doing something that you should be concerned about. And while you're looking over there, they're over here emptying your bank account
That's it.
and taking away your rights
Uh-huh.
and fixing it so you don't have that social security when you
Mhm.
retire.
Right.
That's your insurance policy. You've paid into it all of your life.
Right.
And now they want to tell you that it's a sin because you feel entitled to that money.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, I'm entitled to that money. It's my damn money. I
E
paid in.
yeah.
I want
Yeah.
it back.
Yeah.
If you're not gonna,
Yeah.
do the program, I want a check, full
Right.
sum, interest applied.
Because
And
if we can pay for insurance, doesn't that sound like insurance?
it's
To pay
exactly what it is. It's an
That's
insurance
insurance.
policy.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah, it's
Because
just like
they're investing it and they're making a lot of money off of it. They made so much money, they transferred it into other places.
yeah, exactly. And so, in the meanwhile, squirrel, look over there.
That's
There's
it.
there's brown people with something wrapped around their head misbehaving, and
Right.
there's somebody coming across the Rio Grande,
That
it's like, why do you think people risk what they risk to try to get to this country, which is bad enough? How bad does it have to be where they're from to get them to travel thousands of miles to get to another country? They don't even speak the language,
right.
you know? Um, but yeah, it's hard to I would say it's hard to tell your own story when you don't have family support or friend support, when you're surrounded by people who are constantly telling you, no, you're not you're this person.
Right.
You don't believe that. You believe this because we told you to believe this.
Right. Exactly.
You don't
Or
worship that. You worship here because this is how we told you to worship. It's
right.
like that's I think that's where we get so screwed up, is because we start regurgitating their story
Right.
through their eyes and not our story through
Exactly.
our eyes.
Exactly.
At the same time, the opposite effect can happen when you see your reaction to something being one way, and other people looking in are like, oh my God, I can't believe you did that. That's so
Right.
brave.
Mhm.
And you're thinking that was an act of desperation, you know,
Mhm.
while others see it as an act of bravery. So
Right.
there's pros and cons to someone helping with your story.
Yes.
Sometimes it can give you perspective on yourself that you didn't have before, but it also helps you know, I don't want people to have that perspective of me,
Mhm. Well,
you know?
this is the way I learned it. You are the best authority in your own life. So you need to be the one making decisions in your own life about you. But
Absolutely.
and basically what you were saying is like you're having friends and family, they will not hesitate to step in and tell you exactly what they think you should be doing. And then when it fails and you say, "Well, I did exactly what you said." They say, "Well, you didn't have to do it.
Yeah.
It's on you anyway."
That's one thing I am so thankful to my mother for, was the fact that she raised my brother and I to think for ourselves. It's
Yeah.
your life. You make the decision.
Uh-huh.
She she did her best to keep her opinions to herself if she didn't agree with us. And there were times when I could tell it was really hard for her to do that. You
Yeah.
could literally see her biting her own tongue not to say
Right,
something.
right.
And as a parent, I've also been in that same position where I've
Yeah.
seen my child make a decision and I was just like, that is so wrong. But you keep your mouth shut because
Yeah,
they have to make their own decision,
they have to learn.
and you just have to be there to catch them when they fall and not accuse them of doing it their way. I mean, that's how we learn. what works best for us. Hi, Jay. But yeah, we're getting ready to wrap it up, Jay. You pretty much missed the whole show. As Isaac and I have tried to not go into diatribes on the public education system
Right.
and how screwed up it is.
I'm glad you stopped because I was on the verge. I'm glad you stopped.
I'm telling you, it was all. I was biting my tongue. I was like, okay,
Yeah.
no, let's not go there. That's another show for another day when we'll just make it a free for all and everybody can come in and bitch about schools.
Yes.
Um, so um, it's important to tell your own story
Yes.
so that you can assert who you are and people know who they're dealing with.
Yes.
And it's important that if someone else starts telling your story for you,
Mm-hmm.
I think depending on the situation and the people involved, you may not want to stand right up at that moment and say, no, that's wrong.
Uh-huh.
But then you go about showing those people consistently that that's wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And people will come to that conclusion. I do believe
Mm-hmm.
over a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or you can step in the middle and say, no, they got it wrong. That's not at all what I'm like. Yeah.
I always counter. I always counter. I'm like, oh, is that what you believe? Is that how you see me? And then I
Yeah.
tell them who I am.
Yeah.
Because basically what you're teaching the person is don't speak for me. I'll do that.
Yeah,
Unless
I
I
can tell
ask
for
you to.
myself.
Yes.
Yeah, it's not we have to not give up the power of our voice.
That's it. That's it.
And
You're
and
absolutely right.
that goes back to the importance of a democratic government. The people have a voice and they have a right to express it.
Yes.
Not be violent with it, but to express it, even if that means you have to protest or you have to do address your grievances to whoever is in control for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, it's society and or leadership's role to stop and listen to what it is you're telling them. And I think we see a lot of really dangerous conflict happen
Mm-hmm.
when both sides don't want to listen to the other.
Yeah.
They want to just stay with the narrative in their head
Mm-hmm.
instead of widening their point of view to include the other person's story, because that very well could change yours.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Just knowing that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's well, we could go off into political stuff too, and I try not to do make this a political show. So sometimes though, when you're dealing with mental wellness,
Mm-hmm.
you kind of got to tackle that topic
Mm-hmm.
because it's screwing a bunch of people up in their heads.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think it's just important to know that to know how important it is to tell your own story,
Right.
to let
Right.
people know who you are.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes maybe you have to go away for a while to figure out who you are,
Yep. Yep.
you know, um, or that you come to the realization that you don't like the person you are and I need to change it.
Mm-hmm.
In order to change it, I have to go somewhere where no one knows me
Mm-hmm.
and no one has heard the other story repeated so many times that they'll never listen to me.
Well,
Anyway.
you know one thing too. In the circles that I work in, we say wherever you go, there you are.
Mhm.
Even with those people who have heard your story, you can say that may be who you think I am, but I've changed and this is what I do now. They were like, well, I know you. Well, you knew me then. And you
Yeah.
don't have to argue with them. You can say you can have your own beliefs, but that's not what I believe about me. Because the real point is they're not trying to tell you what they think. They're trying to make you believe what you
What they think.
what they think. That's what they're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah.
That's the real reason.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
you always counter it. And but you don't do
Absolutely.
it from a forceful way. You do it from a way that you're comfortable with, that you are
Yeah.
grounded in who you are, so that you can tell a person. He said, I'm not trying to convince you. I just want you to know where I'm coming from.
Right. And that's hard, especially if your natural person is a shy person
Hmm.
or a quiet person. It's a lot easier to just step back and let somebody else speak for you
That's true. But
as
Sherry,
opposed to speaking for yourself.
yeah, but if everybody starts working on all the things that we've talked about up until this point, you will get there.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You may not have to do everything, but start doing something, and you will get to the point where you want to be, because it's not going away. It's like you can do it now, you can do it later.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Well, guys, we've been at this almost an hour and 10 minutes.
Whoa,
Wow, we went a lot longer than I thought we would.
that was quick.
And I want to thank everybody for coming today. Y'all been having some great conversation in the chat. I mean, I've been trying to follow it along. I'm gonna definitely have to go back afterwards and reread everything
Yeah.
because I know there were key points that I was missing. And Isaac's been taking notes on what y'all are saying like crazy. He's been over there writing it down.
Yes, I have.
And
I have to write
that's
down things.
yep, yep, me too. Um Jay, every second and fourth Sunday of the month, Isaac and I are here to talk about mastering mental wellness for ourselves. Um, in a couple of days, hell, it may even happen today, who knows? I will go in and post a poll of 3 topics that Isaac and I will pick
Hmm.
for the next episode. Y'all get to vote on it. And whatever gets the most votes, that will be the next topic. And I usually try to pull the poll and I'll send Isaac what the results are, and we'll start collecting our information for it a couple of days before showtime. But that gives y'all a week and a half to go in, think about, the 3 options we give, and then pick the one you want to hear us talk about. And there are some shows where we've had PDF files you could download
Hmm.
and print out to use, or links that you can for particular items that you can go look for to help you if the situation is more dire than just an hour show on YouTube.
Hmm.
Um, because while Isaac is a professional counselor, I am not. Sherry's just speaking from Sherry and spirit and whatever pops into my head. So sometimes I can get a little off kilter. Squirrel, look over there,
Yeah.
So, but we all do that. So,
Uh-huh.
thank y'all very much for coming. I hope y'all have a great rest of your holiday weekend.
Yes.
Try not to drink and drive if you go party tonight or tomorrow, because we want you here on Tuesday, and
Yes.
we don't want to lose anybody. So,
Yes.
um, hi Leah,
Hi, Leah.
love you too, darling.
Yes.
And Sir Isaac, she says she loves you too.
Thank you. Love you, Leah.
You've been knighted, I guess. Now you're Sir Isaac. I
That's who I
kind of like the
am.
way that sounds.
That's
Kind of
gonna
like the
be
way
my
that
new name.
sounds. Okay. So next showtime, y'all going to come in, and his little avatar name is going to say Sir Isaac on it. Leah has given him a new name, and it's,
Yes.
I like it. It's going to stick. And I know I shocked the bejeebus out of Sonia and EQ, and I was like, well, Isaac and I do a show together twice a month, and they're like, wait, Isaac's doing a show on YouTube? And I'm like,
Did
yeah.
they? Did they? That's
They
funny.
couldn't get over that. How did you manage that? I said, I asked. And he said, yes. I said, that's one of the best gifts y'all gave me. You gave me Isaac. You introduced me. So
Well, I
I'll,
think it's because it was you and you had the right topic, and maybe I was just in that zone at that time. So it
and he
just
hadn't
happened
run
to
away
work.
from me yet. So far, so good.
Yes.
And now I have a very good friend that I know is always there. So, that's the best part. Um, Thank y'all for coming. Thank you for
Yeah.
spending your Sunday afternoon with us. Like I said, the next few days I'll post a poll up for the next topic to discuss, and y'all get to vote on it. So we're trying to keep this as much chat directed as we can, so that
Yes.
if it's something that you're wanting to hear us talk about, then you're going to come back the next time to hear it. So
Yes.
that's the whole point of that.
Yes.
So y'all are involved too, because we're in this all together.
Yes.
And y'all have a great weekend. Stay safe. Stay off the roads if you don't have to get on them, because there are going to be a lot of drunks on the road.
Wow.
Um, so no sense in putting yourself at risk. And I don't know if she's still on air or not, but we wrap up. If Sun Psychic Jean is still on, she's doing a special Memorial Day thing over on her channel. So
Okay.
I told her I'd pop in if she was still on when we got done, and we'll see what happens.
Okay.
She may be done. I don't know.
Well,
Um, well, Sir Isaac, thank you very much for
thank you.
gracing us with your presence this
And
week.
Lady Sherry.
There we go, lady and sir. I like
Oh,
that.
yes.
All right. Bye, everybody. Y'all have a great weekend. We will
Yes.
see you in
2 weeks.
two. When do we see you again? We'll be back on June the 9th
Okay.
after my birthday. So bye for now.
Bye now.